I'd like to call to order the meeting of September 1st, 2015. Would you all please stand for the invocation of the pledge of allegiance?
Lord, we pray that you will give our council members the faith and courage to carry on their duties, help them to do right, to deal fairly with others, and to place their trust in you. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Put a roll call.
Becker?
Here.
Souter?
There.
McBain? Schoniker?
Here.
Callender? Here. Simpson?
Here.
Blakeman?
Here.
Willard?
Here.
Lisbeth?
You'll receive the meeting minutes for August 18th. Are there any questions or comments on those? Not, those stand as presented. There's nothing to read this evening. There's no reports from commissions. Is there anyone here this evening wanting to speak to council? Come on up.
I'm at McGrath, Blue Mercury Drive, Columbiana, and my subject tonight will be the quiet zone that Mr. Flynn has asked the council here to put up money for. And I'm here to speak on the safety aspect of the quiet zone. And the railroad's been here for around 200 years, I'd say. Now people, ever since I've been here, running across 3 crossings in town. It'd be Pittsburgh Street, which is, you cannot really see from the east because it comes in an angle. Elm Street has a brick building sitting right next to the tracks up there, right next to Mr. Flynn's. And you cannot see until you get out on the tracks. And Main Street, you can see very good on each side of that. But to put up a quiet zone, which we have school buses crossing there, full of kids. And myself, being an open living here, that's the greatest fear I have, is seeing a bus full of kids. Now, we have a few other revelers here that would like to speak on the subject also. And Mr. Hoffman, I don't know if you want to come for or not.
Mr. Bill, question, how many years did you run the train?
Over 30 years.
30 years, you sat in the engine and ran it, huh?
Yes.
That's
And
impressive.
operated between Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and Fort Wayne, Indiana.
What, now, there were any quiet zones in that time?
There's only one crossing. That's in Huntington, PA, that we ring a bell. Now, I'm told there's a hospital there. I'm not sure, I don't know the town that well, but that's the only crossing between Harrisburg and Fort Wayne. It has a bell. Rest of the time, do the whistle. But, Mr. Hoffman,
Yes.
you wanna help?
Absolutely. Just state your name and address for the record.
Gene Hoffman, East Palestine, Ohio. I live, dwell on Market Street in East Palestine. It's a major railroad crossing there also. We have 3 crossings like you do here. But like Max said, why, that's the only crossing that I'm aware of where they only ring the bell when we're crossing. I don't know why they would want to silence it going through here. It's the best alert there is for protection. You go from here to California, and they're all the same. They, both crossings, and I'm sure it saves a lot of accidents. And there's no worse feeling than getting down off an engine and having to go look in the car to pour all the pieces and hope you don't find body parts. So I kind of come up to see what your thoughts were on it, because we got 3 crossings like you do in East Palestine, and I live on Market Street, which is the main crossing down there. I think there's 2 state routes across there. So I just come up to see what your thoughts and feelings.
My personal feelings or council's feelings?
Well, everybody in general, you know.
Did you also work on them projects?
Yeah, yes, 34 years.
A lot of years between the two.
A lot of miles, a lot of years, a lot of training. But it was good, all good. I enjoyed it.
We're still researching.
Yeah, well, Mac and I were talking, we belong to a retiree group, and we kind of get involved in things once in a while, and I said, well, I'm off tonight, so I'll come up, so that's why I'm here.
I can tell you my personal opinion is that if we have more diligence to do, and we've talked about going to other towns that have these quiet zones to look at it and talk to them to see on the safety side of it, what all it would entail. But I think before we ever even worry about that part, we need to see if there's money to do something. There wasn't, there's not even a need for us to consider whether or not we're gonna do it.
Yeah.
And right now, that's
I
not the case.
personally think it'd be foolish, you know. One life, no amount of money can replace it, you know, if something like that happens.
I agree.
I was generally the conductor and Mac was the engineer on a lot of the jobs we worked together. And it was always my assignment to look at the cars, what was left of
Oh,
them.
jeez.
So I had 2 hits and 2 misses in 34 years. No fatalities.
Thank you.
Nice thing.
Yeah.
I'm Richard Elliott, I live on 517, but I have a plumbing access. And I worked on a railroad 38 years, and I blew the well and ring the one of us on the engine. But I want to say, I've sat there on that crossing a couple times. I've watched kids come out there and play church with the engine. And that's dangerous. Now, if you come around here without the whistle, these kids ain't gonna know when that engine's coming. And they're gonna be dead as a door. And up in Cleveland, I hit and killed a 5-year-old. And I'm not too happy about it, but that was been 10 years ago. He was out there looking for his dad out in the middle of the bay at the drawbridge looking for a spot. We come along at 55 miles an hour. And it wasn't perfect. So, and the mother turned around and sued us for the seaside of the Norfolk. But other than that, if you don't have the whistle on that crossing, and then kids are out there playing chicken, they're gonna be dead.
Sir, am I incorrect in that from the time of those lights go on, you have a 30-second span between them and the turning at the
We
intersection?
got 2,000 feet. We got 2,000 feet and start blowing, and the gates come down, they come out to play chicken, and they're not blowing for that whistle, how they gonna know how to blow short? And I played chicken with kids, they park the cars on railroad tracks and turn their lights out and play chicken with us. These teenagers are crazy, you know, everybody knows teenager once, so you can, I'm just saying, I think it's a bad idea, but I just want to voice my opinion, because I've seen too much accidents out there.
Appreciate you 3 gentlemen coming out tonight.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'd like to address, I've talked to you a little bit about the financial aspects. I'm Dan with 294 West Salem. I'm understanding that Dave Flynn has no interest in contributing to this venture. That's my understanding. He says he can't, or from insurance reasons or something. I don't see why the city would have to do this for him. He's been there, how long has he been there? And how long has that train been going through there? And his business is flourishing. I don't really see the point of the city taking on its financial responsibility and risk.
That's been our stance so far.
And if we do it, we have no guarantee he's gonna stay. So we're gonna have a quiet zone. We're gonna have no dealership possibly. But we're gonna have the money laid out. We've got a crappy sewer runoff system. Yeah, we've got things we need to have done. And I, for one, don't want to contribute to that. I like Dave, I know Dave. He's a businessman.
Yeah.
You know, he wants his business, it would make his business better. But that's his business, he should contribute to it. So, I just don't think it's financially in our best interest. So I don't see the point of doing any kind of investigation until we, first of all, can prove that the insurance company has told you that, because I don't take his word for it, not that I'm calling him a liar. And I also haven't seen the documentation that GM said he had to do it.
Where are we?
So I'm not assuming anything. I think before we can even consider it, how about let's see some documentation, let's get some eyes on the paperwork he said he has. Let's see it.
We'll ask him for all of those things.
Good man. Good man. But that's the first thing I would have asked.
Can't believe he did directives without paper.
Yeah, and it won't mean anything if he did. So, I'm glad you guys are on the same page.
Thanks, thank you. Anyone else want to speak to council tonight?
Is the matter on the agenda?
It's not formally on the agenda, I plan on making some comments.
Okay, can I comment later if I have to?
Sure.
Okay.
Anyone else? We'll move into the manager's report.
Okay, we heard from Norfolk Southern. Maybe some of you on the south side of town may have seen some signs coming up from Road Safe. They're gonna be coming in and doing the final asphalt work on Elm Street and Pittsburgh Street. They haven't given us an exact date, but when they do, we will notify all of our safety services, and then we will also call the schools so they can make their adjustments. We're just going day by day, and anytime we hear anything, we'll definitely, we'll let them know as soon as possible. They will not be closing all three crossings at the same time, but if they would, we would have safety forces doubled up on both sides, just to make sure, including fire, EMS, and police. Pat Tingle from R&B said she'll be coming to the council with her draft proposal park improvement on September 15th, so you all have that in there. She did drop off the budget yesterday, and that'll be in your next packet. The State of Ohio Treasurer has been working with Mike to work on that ohiocheckbook.com. We talked about it a little bit earlier this year as far as the transparency program that the state's implementing, and I don't know how soon we're going to get it all done, but the emails are flying back and forth right now.
The city's being recognized for that this coming Thursday at the Mahoning and Trumbull Regional Chamber. I think Josh Mandel, the treasurer, will be there, and Mike and I will be there, and they're recognizing the city for what we're doing.
Very good. We're gonna need to have some discussion about upcoming changes to income tax. The House Bill 5 has made some changes, so Mike and Dan and Sharon are working on over the next, well, it's gonna probably over the next few weeks, but we've got some work to do before January 1st. There's gonna be some changes, and we're gonna have to pass an ordinance, but we don't have that drawn up yet, but I believe that they're gonna send us a draft.
We already have a sample. Yeah.
Okay.
Working with the OML, they have a sample ordinance for the municipalities to use. So Dan and I and Sharon are gonna go through that, and there's quite a bit. It's about yay thick, about 58 pages, but it has to be done before the end of the year.
Well, what are the consequences basically of this?
Basically, if you don't follow House Bill 5, the stipulations that are in the House Bill, the state could actually say you can no longer collect an income tax. So we would have no income tax if we don't pass this ordinance. And there's some other things that you need to do. We have to get stuff on the website, what's called a taxpayer's bill of rights. We have to have both ordinances on there, our old ordinance and our new ordinance, because We still will be going by 2015 when we process people's income taxes in 2016. So we have to have both of those. And there's a few other things, but there are some stipulations that we do have to do. Because some of the items in the new bill take effect January 1st, 2016.
The business that came to planning commission is talking about the annexation and everything, they're progressing, and they're coming to planning commission next week. They got us everything for the packets today, and I believe those packets went out today. The crews are still, at the park and cemetery, crews are still fixing up fun land and several other playing areas. Geese are still under control, thankfully. Electric department, the LED lighting spec is ready, and GPD issued you a letter recommendation in your packet. And there's a motion on the agenda authorizing me to go out to bid, so we can do that. We may even be able to get some of them installed this year, so it's, I think it's gonna be good. I think we're gonna save over, gonna save some money too. Hopefully the bid's coming good. The electric department helped remove the old wastewater plant generator, and they're also helping that company put those harmonic filters in the wastewater plant. So they've been helping them out. Appreciate that. Street department, they worked on the industrial park entrance, including new base and pavement. There's a photo of this. So they dug up some of the base and put some new base down, and they also found some water under there, so they actually were able to plumb that out. So hopefully it lasts longer than it. Well, if it lasts longer, I'm not sure what the time frame was on when it was last installed, but it definitely needed addressed, and the park crew, everybody else, park crew, street crew, waste crew, they all helped out on that, and got that done, and did it under budget, save some money rather than send it out. Wastewater department, Graph Electric, they're the ones that got the generator bid, and they helped remove that generator. Doing some, had to replace a pump at one of the lift stations, and doing a little bit of repairs on them. Water department, repaired several valves off North Main Street. And then, I guess the last thing I have, I put I just passed it out, opinion of probable cost, construction cost for the bump in, if you will, on Mercantile Square. So what I did is I took this original estimate that House and Baird had, sat down with the street crew, Jesse, and also the anonymous donor that would help on the concrete work. And what we did is, where we see the city is where the city can either do materials and labor. And then the total cost for the construction, we got it down about $3,300, but I went ahead and put some contingency in there, like House and Bear did, bringing up to $4,800, and then the engineering would bring up to $6,300. So I know that, I believe it was about $16,000, and that'll take the sidewalk to the first point. But the project itself, I know that Dan wanted to talk a little bit about it as far as the parking itself.
Before you address that issue, I need to read some of this into the record. There are places where parking is prohibited by law without the need to affect a no parking sign. Sidewalks next to a fire hydrant, You can imagine other situations where you just can't park, but you don't have to have a sign telling you you can't park. However, where parking is prohibited by ordinance, there must be notice to drivers of the prohibition in a specific location in the form of a sign or a painted curb. No parking zone of this nature cannot be enforced without such a sign or painted curb. And by the same token, a no parking sign or painted curb without a supporting ordinance cannot be used to enforce the prohibition. The posting of signs or the painting of curbs must follow the passage of a no parking ordinance. And the most recent example of this was found in 2011, where we prohibited parking on 7th Street. And the ordinance says quite simply that parking of motor vehicles on the north side of 7th Street shall be and hereby is prohibited, and no parking signs shall be accordingly erected. In this case, the city has a valid ordinance in place, and I have spent a number of hours, as Lance can attest, searching the indexes of ordinances from 1950 to the present day, looking for any ordinance repealing or annexing that original ordinance in any way. Did find a 1955 ordinance allowing church parking on Sundays for 3 hours only. I also found several ordinances establishing a two-hour parking limit on other streets in town. But I found no legislation amending or repealing the 1950 parking ban on East Park Avenue. Now, I don't claim to be infallible, and I would invite anybody to conduct the same search that I conducted, but I can tell you it was laborious to go through all those records. I have to say, however, that I would have been surprised to find such legislation for the following reasons. First, no parking signs remain on both sides of East Park Avenue. Secondly, East Park Avenue is too narrow to allow parking in front of the mercantile store. Third, City Ordinance Section 452.12 requires a minimum of 10 feet in any lane of vehicular traffic, and the allowance of parking in front of the mercantile store would not allow that standard to be met. 4, the safety of the traveling public should be a high priority as far as this council is concerned. And 5, 2 engineers have given their opinion that unless East Park Avenue is widened, parking there should not be allowed. When this safety issue arose some months ago, questions also arose. Have people parked there in years past? Have people been cited for parking there? Did the zoning inspector indicate that parking was allowed there? Is the no parking sign on the east side of Walnut Alley a sufficient warning? Was the curb in front of the mercantile store once painted? Was 2-hour parking ever posted? But no matter how you answer any of those questions, the fact remains that parking is prohibited there by ordinance, that the parking prohibition is founded upon a legitimate concern for public safety, and so long as that ordinance remains in place with notice to the public by way of the signs and the painted curb, in my opinion, it must be enforced. Now, after last council meeting, I was asked by several councilmen to respond to the things that the mayor said. The question raised is this, or was this: what are the ramifications of Mayor Blakeman's pronouncements before the Columbiana City Council, repeated in the Morning Journal and on television on August 19, 2015, that he will not enforce the city ordinance prohibiting parking in front of the mercantile store on East Park Avenue, and that the no parking zone there is bad for business? This is my response. An Ohio mayor shall see that all ordinances, bylaws, and resolutions of the legislative authority are faithfully obeyed and enforced. Comes directly from Ohio Revised Code, section 733.30. Each mayor of an Ohio municipality conducting a mayor's court pursuant to Revised Code, chapter 1905, shall comply with the mayor's court education and procedure rules issued by the Ohio Supreme Court. Each mayor shall obtain a minimum of 6 hours of classroom instruction related to the Ohio judicial system and its rules, including the Mayor's Court Education and Procedure Rules and the Code of Judicial Conduct. Those rules and that code require a mayor who conducts a mayor's court to serve as a neutral and detached magistrate, to interpret and apply the law without regard to whether he approves or disapproves of the law in question, to refrain from making any public statement that may reasonably be expected to affect the outcome or impair the fairness of a matter pending or impending, to refrain from making pledges, promises, or commitments which are inconsistent with the impartial performance of his judicial duty, and to disqualify himself in any proceeding in which his impartiality might reasonably be questioned, including a circumstance in which he has made a public statement which commits or appears to commit him to reach a particular result or rule in a particular way in a proceeding or controversy. A mayor who fails or refuses to abide by those rules places the continuation of his mayor's court in jeopardy. A mayor who makes a public pronouncement that he will not judicially enforce a particular ordinance compromises the position of municipal police officers who are sworn to enforce that ordinance by issuing citations to persons reasonably believed to be violating that ordinance. Finally, a mayor who goes beyond inappropriate public pronouncements, thereby refusing to disqualify himself in cases related to such pronouncements, and actually refuses to enforce the law at issue, runs the risk of being accused of misconduct in office.
I would also like to read into the record that this book of codified ordinances are the ordinances that this city are run by. These are our laws. I would ask Mr. Blaisdell right now to find this ordinance in this book. This is what is published. This is what I have to sit here. If someone comes in front of me in court and an officer cites an ordinance, I get a ticket. I have to look at the ordinance number. And if I flip through to traffic, our entire book here, I'll find ordinances from the 40s. I find ordinances from the 60s. There is no ordinance in this book that states anything about what they're talking about. There is an ordinance locked in our safe in the back that states what he's speaking of. It was printed and published, I think it was 1953 in the Columbiana Ledger, which no longer is in business. I don't know that the last date that it was enacted or cited by a police officer. I do know that there were two other mayors sitting up here that both ran mayor's courts, and both of them continuously stated that they thought parking was legal there, which tells me they never had anyone in front of either of their courts. I don't know how far back that goes, but I know quite a ways. So the way I look at this, in 1953, when this ordinance was passed, if someone was 18 years old, and a legal adult, they would have been, at this point, 80. Anyone younger than 80 years old, never having this law enforced, would not know that the law is even there. And in the state of Ohio, people are owed due process. So due process in any court, you have to look at the laws, of which this law is not in here. And I have to have someone standing in front of me and say, are you guilty or not guilty? If this law, if you guys right now as a council vote this and say we're going to advertise this 2 times like we do everything else, run it through and stick it in this book, I will enforce it all day long. But I can't sit up here and enforce a law that is not published. If you go on our website right now, it says codified ordinances. There's a disclaimer at the bottom that states they're not all in there. But it says current as of 2015 for all ordinances through 2014. We've had not 1 year or 2 years, but we've had 65 years to have added this to this book, and it's not there. So from a due process standpoint, I'm not saying I won't enforce any law. I won't enforce any law there is. I'm saying this law isn't a law. So that's the argument here. I'm not saying I wouldn't enforce something, Dan. You said those words. The Morning Journal printed those words. I never said I wouldn't enforce a law. I said they would be found not guilty. And the reason they'd be found not guilty is because if you have to prove beyond any reasonable doubt that somebody is guilty, and there's no law that you can point to, you can't. If we go further and we look at the fact that our city employee gave this business owner our word, that could be construed by a judge as a waiver. So there's no facts to point to guilt. So it's not a matter of being impartial. It's not a matter of saying, you know what, I don't believe what you're saying, I'm not gonna do this. I'm saying this law is not in our codified ordinances, it's not published. If it's not published, I can't enforce it.
Well
Apparently,
said.
just a minute. Apparently you haven't read the ordinance, Mr. Brady.
I
If you'll
haven't.
turn to page 215, please, in that large book you have in front of you.
Under traffic,
Page 215, parking general, section 452.21. You'll not only find it in that large book, but you'll also find it online if you look.
but that's not the ordinance that you're referencing.
This is what you don't understand, and I'm trying to explain it to you.
Explain it to everyone, sir.
I'm trying to do that.
Little louder, because I really can't hear. We can't understand you.
I'm telling you, try to listen. What I'm saying, am I not interrupting?
Don't interrupt it, it's okay.
What I'm saying to you is, and what I try to explain in my statement, parking ordinances validate the signs, and the signs validate the ordinances. Parking ordinances in almost all municipalities like Columbiana, which go back 100 to 150 years, were established back in the 30s, the 40s, and the 50s when traffic became an issue. Most all of our no parking ordinances, our no parking zones were established then. Now, the purpose of the code section to which I refer you says quite clearly that parking is prohibited where there are signs prohibiting stopping and painted curbs. That's how we identify the places where the ordinances have established a no parking zone. You are obliged, as the mayor in the mayor's court, to enforce that particular code section, which is in black and white before you. And simply because you don't understand that,
Well, that has nothing to do with understanding, Dan. What you're now stating is a different ordinance than you referenced, and you printed, and you put in our council
You're
tax.
not-
Completely,
you're not-
it's a totally different
you're not
ordinance.
listening.
I am listening.
There are probably, I don't know, a dozen no parking ordinances established in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, even up into the 1970s.
And we enforce them all.
Each time, just as when we established the no parking ordinance, the zone on 7th Street, it was necessary to not only pass the legislation, but to put the signs up. Now, once the signs are up, and someone parks in front of the sign, they are violating that ordinance. That's the purpose of this section. Now, I would have explained this to you if you would have come to me personally at any time. But you're absolutely wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. And you are obliged to enforce this law as it exists on the books. And it's right in front of you in black and white, and you want to look at your computer at home, you'll find it there. That's the answer to your question.
Okay.
I didn't ask you a question.
May I speak now, please?
Go ahead.
Excuse me. Okay. Sorry to have to be here again, but this isn't resolved yet. My business doesn't get the same degree of traffic through the door since this has been done. Now, when Police Chief Gladys came to my business, he presented me with an old ordinance, number 811. Is that the one you're relying
Absolutely.
everything on? Okay. I talked to American Legal Publishing Company. I said this 2 meetings ago, and you've acted like I never said it. You don't give any credibility to it whatsoever. American Legal Publishing Company makes the big book. They know everything about your laws. They know how you pass them through, how you enact them, the whole 9 yards. They told me, and they wrote to me, that you never sent that ordinance through as current law. So they said something happened along the way prior to 1974, which is the first time they codified the Columbiana city laws, or the village at that time. And they said that something happened prior, you'd have to go through the city council minutes, or it could have just been something that the people passing through the laws to them considered obsolete and didn't pass through. So if it didn't pass through, why are we having all this to do about it today? The no parking signs that you claim exist in front of the church beyond the Walnut Alley. Not in front of my store, not in front of the store across the street from me. So why do you not look at those as if you understand why they were put there in the first place, which is what I also researched, and I also went over with you in that July City Council meeting. I talked to ODOT, and ODOT told
Stay
me.
calm.
Okay, but I'm upset I have a business and an investment here. Okay.
Stay calm.
It's not his money, it's mine, okay? I talked to ODOT. They went over the whole matter with me of why that law was ever put into place. And as far as everyone can see, there is no more stipulation from their requirement that there be no parking on that street. The reason they enacted that in the first place is because in 1950, Mayor, not 1953, ODOT gave, the state of Ohio gave City of Columbiana or Village of Columbiana money, $6,200 to do resurfacing work. At that point in time, State Route 14 and 46 both ran through East Park Avenue. That's why they gave the money to Columbiana to do the resurfacing. They also requested that there be no parking on either side of East Park Avenue because of the fact that it was still a state highway route. So, 7 years later, and I have the documents here to prove it from ODOT, by 7 years later, both State Route 14 and State Route 46 were rerouted. And the state of Ohio basically abandoned East Park Avenue. And they confirmed for me, through their legal counsel for ODOT, that they have no more say in the matter with what you do with East Park Avenue parking. None, they could care less, it's over. The state routes do not run through there, and they don't care. Okay, but I am so upset over this.
Well,
I know, I have to sit there every single day and watch the lack of people coming through my door. I take it very personally, and it is upsetting. Any one of you who could sit here and say that this wouldn't be equally as upsetting to you is lying. Now, whatever the reason for this is, I don't know. I pray to God it goes away, okay? I have an investment. I tried to do the right thing. I went to Bob Belding. I asked him, if he had told me it was no parking, I would have probably passed on the whole location. Okay, it just wasn't that good of a location if it doesn't have the parking in front. There's a big difference between people pulling up in your front door, pulling up to your front of your store and going in your front door. It makes a huge difference. The whole store was designed around front entry. I'm not trying to argue with you. I'm just saying there's a lot of facts here. And some of them are contrary to what you're saying. And whatever the reason was that somebody went and pulled out the old ordinance number 811 to use against me in that business is something that none of us have the answer to today. But it's wicked. And I'll tell you, God help the person that did it and the people that are pushing it, because it was rude, it was rotten, it was inconsistent. No city should have new business in it that treats them like that. That is just wrong. And I don't know what your function in this matter is, other than what you may think you're doing.
I think she's okay right now.
Listen, I'm gonna tell you something. You all own businesses. Did anything like this ever happen to you in your businesses? I mean, seriously? I mean, this is just not right. I chose this town because I thought it was so cute. I thought I did my job. I thought I went around. I thought I asked the questions I needed to ask. Apparently, there's these trick things that come out of the bag when somebody has something against you. And I don't know who this person is. I don't know what they want. I don't know why they don't like it. Maybe they didn't like my black car in front of the store. You said something last week about my black car being in front of the store, and it was there. You even said to me in that July meeting that that parking in front of my store was for the citizens, not for me. You said it's not for business owners, and those were your exact words. Well, you were just saying that there was parking allowed in front of my store, but it was for the citizens.
Well, I don't know. What
You did say that, it should be in the minutes. You also said to me that the reason you weren't enforcing Chief Gladys to stay in his position in this matter is because you wanted this to be a no parking zone. You said that in the July meeting. And it was very, very indicative to me.
That's just not true.
You said,
You're just making things up, man.
no, I'm not making things up, sir. I'm very articulate in my
Fair point of
memory
order,
of
she's
things.
becoming argumentative.
No, I'm not becoming argumentative. I'm trying to
It sure does
think.
sound like it from this side, ma'am.
Well, sir, if you're not
It's
listening to the
okay.
reasons, okay.
Go sit down.
Okay.
It's okay. Anyways, it's obviously a point of contention. Several of us, at least up until tonight, have thought that the city has done her wrong in what we told. To me, politics is about compromise. I don't want to give up any of it. You guys don't want the parking spaces there. I think Lance came up with a very good idea to compromise, being able to put this bump in. It widens it, it makes it safe. It's not what I want, it's not what you guys want. It gives the business owner, it makes it right with what the city said. It permanently makes parking on that side of Main Street legal and safe. And it's $6,000. It's 25% of what it's, of the original price would have been. Late
Including
tax?
city cost there,
What's that?
including the city cost there.
Did not put actual labor in, I did not calculate labor.
You still have to consider that.
That's fine, but it's a cost that we would write their paycheck for regardless of what they're doing, that cost is here. So, to me, I wanted to take it a step further, we have a disagreement, and that's okay. If you put this ordinance, if you guys just say, you know what, Morning Journal, run this ordinance as is, 2 times, put people on notice, my opinion with this whole thing is that if we haven't enforced something in 65 years, we can't, when they passed the smoking ban, what was it, 7, 8 years ago, they gave 6 months of warnings and notice that it was gonna happen. My frustration with this is whenever this all came about, I got a call from the chief, who's not here tonight, and he said, you know, until council settles this, we're gonna give warnings. I said, I am totally okay with that. That puts people on notice of what's going on. And the next day, we went a different route and just said, we're gonna start ticketing. No notice, no warnings, and it's not been enforced in decades. So.
You keep saying that, and you don't know that. You don't know that. You don't have a clue. You haven't lived in this town 5 or 6 years.
I lived here 10, so you don't have a clue, because I've been 10.
There are people on this council who have said that in their view, they've parked in front of there, they've seen people park there. I've seen another gentleman on this council said that he has remembered when people were told not to park there. I don't know when people started to park there with impunity. I don't know that. I also don't know.
That's my issue.
Every driver in this room has sped on multiple occasions. Every driver in this room has run a stop sign on occasion. Every driver in this room has parked someplace where they shouldn't have parked. That does not make the law prohibiting speeding, running stop signs, or parking inappropriate.
No, I agree with you.
And just stop saying.
I agree with you 100%.
Well, then stop saying it hasn't been enforced for 65 years, because you don't know that.
Okay, maybe for the next meeting, you can give me a report of the last time this ticket had gone through mayor's court.
There hasn't been a ticket because
Understood.
we recognize that the yellow curb was not in place. That's why the police refrained from doing anything for a matter of months until it was.
They didn't refrain for months.
Yes, they did.
Chief Gladys called me, and the very next day.
There has been no ticket issued there. There's been no
He
parking
called to
ticket.
tell me, you know what, we're going a different direction.
Well, he's
We're
not here.
not gonna do warnings.
He's not here to defend himself. That's not the point. What I'm
Do you
telling you.
think I would be taking this stance otherwise?
Well, I don't know why you're taking it, but what I'm telling you is that we have not ticketed anybody there until the yellow line was marked, so that drivers would know that that's the no parking zone. That's what I tried to explain to you from the outset.
He wrote me a letter before the yellow curb was there, and he said he completely did an about face. He told us he was only issuing warnings in front of me and my father, and then partway through it, before the yellow line was there, he turned around and he wrote a letter, and he said, I'm gonna start issuing citations now. So it was before the yellow line was there.
I'm not trying to argue. I'm not trying to fight. For the last 2 years, I think we've worked way better together than we have for the previous 4. I take offense to the fact that you suggest I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know what I'm talking about. I've spoke to attorneys, I've spoke to judges. I feel very confident in maybe from an attorney standpoint, you agree with that people are owed due process.
Of course, what does that have to do with it? I just told you what the state of the law is and how they're notified. The people, anybody who parks in front of yellow line knows that they're not supposed to be there.
Why?
And they're appropriately ticketed.
Why do we run an ordinance through the legal section to put people on notice? It's not because we paint a curb.
Yes, you do. That's how you do it.
We don't advertise it?
That's how you advertise it to the driving public. When they
So we
see
don't
a
pay the
no
Morning
parking
Journal
sign.
for
Why
advertising?
Why has it not been there for
Yellow
50 years? Why has it not been there for 50 years? That yellow
I
curb.
can't-
Why is there no sign there for 50 years?
There is a sign there that's.
No, there's
No,
not,
there's
sir.
not.
No, there's not.
Excuse me,
You're incorrect.
please.
It says
I'd like
it's-
the floor.
Get up and
Guys,
I'd like the
I
floor,
don't
please.
like that.
go ahead.
I have hearing aids in
I
too.
respect that.
We cannot deny the fact of exactly how this whole thing come about. There was a question as to the safety of cars going westbound on East Park Avenue, having to cross the double yellow line, which made them illegal. They were breaking the law by passing that car sitting on the side of the street. The question come up about that. That question was researched. Start with, the attorney was instructed, find out if there's an ordinance. The attorney did exactly what he was supposed to do. The city manager brings in an engineer. The engineer says, you gotta have this wide a street, or you can't park there. It's not safe, okay? We now, as a city of Columbiana, are aware of the fact that if we continue to allow cars to park in that street right now, it's a safety hazard, and we, the city of Columbiana, are liable. We can be sued because we are aware of it. But,
Go ahead.
plain and simple,
We haven't
okay?
received anything.
So
stating
now,
that the-
to start with, Mayor, I'm really disappointed that you would sit there, a learned individual, and say, I will not find somebody guilty when you cannot deny the ordinance is there and you cannot deny there's a no parking
I
sign
can't
there.
deny the ordinance is there.
There's a no parking sign there. It's been there forever. I confess I missed it myself, okay? But it's there. So now we're in this situation. No sense in sitting here badgering back and forth
I
and
agree with
carrying
you.
on.
Let's fix it.
Are we gonna do this or not?
So,
Okay, but as far as this badgering is concerned, it's time we quit.
I don't want a badger.
Well, you are.
Well, I am not. I'm sitting here defending myself from attacks. But on top of it, I asked for this 2 weeks ago. I asked for it 6 weeks ago. I wasn't here two meetings ago. I haven't been sitting here trying to do nothing. I've been trying to get this resolved. And we keep tabling it. Tabling is not gonna resolve.
You know why,
the
Mayor,
issue.
you know why I said table it? I made the motion twice to table this conversation. And the reason why I made the motion twice to table the conversation, because the conversation went in a circle 3 times and nothing changed. And why are we gonna continue to sit here and talk about it? It's time to move on. Now,
So we
my
have laid this.
my fellas on council, what's your opinion? What do we do? Somebody make a motion.
It's for $6,300. I need to clarify that Lance could do this on his own, but doesn't want to because he wants council's blessing. And I agree with it.
No, point of order. Okay, I see what you're saying now.
You do have, you have the financial ability to do this without asking
That is
council.
correct.
But he wants your blessing. I'm not saying he's in agreement or not in agreement, I'm saying that he won't do it without your blessing. I'm asking for your blessing to do it, everything else gets enforced. My only other thing that I want to state is if we do this, the other side of the street, we didn't paint that curb for some reason. You guys ran out there and painted that curb, the other side of the street that supposedly is the law. We didn't put anyone on notice on that side of it. It's not painted right now. So for whatever reason, we aren't still putting everyone on notice. I'm not gonna fight about it, I'm not gonna bring it up again, but we're not handling this properly. This fixes it. No, we're done. At this point, everything else would be enforced. It's legal. It fixes it. It makes it wide enough, it addresses your concerns, and it makes things whole. I'm done. Do we have a motion or not?
I think we ought to end it, so, for the next meeting, if anybody agrees, if they don't, it's fine with me too. We draw up a resolution, ordinance, or whatever it takes to do this project. Then we'll vote it up or down, and it's finished.
That's fine, it wouldn't require that.
Well, that's what I want. We do it.
That's fine.
I'll make a motion. I want to put this to bed. You didn't get a second, did you?
Oh, okay, no,
I want to
yeah.
put this, and you didn't make a motion, you made a suggestion. I want to put this to bed. I move we direct the city manager to put this bump out according to what this says, right here.
I'll second that.
Any comments?
I do have a couple of questions. We have two items which were donated. And this is to some extent aimed at Craig, I hope Dan can answer this. The contractor who is suggesting will donate this, would we need to have a contract with that contractor to complete this? I mean, my concern is that we get in this, we tear everything out, and he comes back and says, you know, gee, I really can't do this right now for whatever reason. And we end up putting the bill for it anyway in the future. And if we do have a contract, does that mean that we have to have some sort of, most contracts have to have two-way, you know, you get something, they get something, in order to be effective.
And his proposal had
It's verbal,
it was verbal.
and I called him today, we can have a written this week.
I think that would be my main concern, is that there would have to be some sort of contractors to make sure, legally binding contract to make sure everything is handled on both sides. But if that's possible, then I'm all for going forward with it.
I'm afraid we're opening up a can of worms by doing this, if we make a bump out. We make a bump out here, we make a bump out there, we change this, we change that.
Somebody's gonna ask.
I'm afraid we're opening up a can of worms.
Any other comments? Deanne?
No.
Souter,
No.
McBain,
Yes.
Schoniger,
I'll abstain, I'll go with the majority.
Callender,
Yes.
Simpson,
No.
2 yes, 1 abstention, and 3 no's. So I believe that fails.
It's done. Okay. Do you have anything else?
You know,
You'll receive the bill list for September 1st.
oh, I'm sorry, the A?
Oh, okay. We need a motion to authorize the city manager to advertise for bids for the LED streetlight project.
So moved.
Second.
We'll have to get your deputy attorney.
Is there a motion and a second?
Yes, there was. Souter,
Yes.
McBain,
Yes.
Schoniger,
Yes.
Callender,
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Becker,
Yes.
Nothing under old business, nothing under new business, council comments. Now I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.